Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ellen Kessler. I'm a founding member of Canada Geese Protection Colorado. I'd like to read a letter from Genevieve Launay. She lives in Paris, France, and I quote, "Dear Mr. Scott Gilmore, I'm a French lady who loves America. Since my childhood, I have special feelings for birds, and I have particularly been fascinated by migratory birds. They are so cohesive, so smart, so brave. Thus I send you this message to beseech you to end now and forever the cullings of the Canada geese in Denver area parks. These massive killings of innocent and defenseless creatures are cruel and obviously ineffective in population management. Denver's image is tarnished, so I entreat you to definitely stop these cullings and to work strategically and intelligently with experts on wild birds who claim that non-lethal measures have been used successfully to manage the geese." Unquote. Respectfully yours, Genevieve Launay. And before I conclude, I just wanted to let you know that Mr. Scott Gilmore has still not contacted First Gentleman Marlon Reese following his only yada 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 email after the last PRAB meeting. Do you still expect us to believe he plans on cooperating with the First Gentleman and us? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. We'll go to the next speaker, Carol Woodall. Carol, are you with us?
I am. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay, that was a little confusing. Good evening, everyone. My name is Carol Woodall, and I'm with Canada Geese Protection Colorado. And I want to start off by maybe sort of couching what you just heard Ellen Kessler read. It was a letter from a woman in Paris. Her name is Genevieve Launay. Now, going back to try to situate this, what is going to be happening over the course of however many months is that Canada Geese Protection Colorado has started protest readings of letters and statements written to Mr. Scott Gilmore. And by so doing, and in reading these letters and statements, we're adding to the voices and to the discussion around the cities and Denver parks and recs hushed decisions to cull the Canada geese in 2019 and 2020. And what we ask all of you, the members of PRAB, is to consider the various local, national, and international registers of protest against the use of killing, including the voice of Dr. Jane Goodall. An indication of meeting population management goals curtailing a 2021 cull is not a definitive statement against culling and in support of methodical uses of non-lethal methods. The protest readings ask for each of you to operate from a place of compassion and recognition. And so what I'm doing is reading a letter from a resident of Denver who was unable to sign in this evening. Dear Mr. Scott Gilmore, I am outraged that 400 to 500 Canada geese were rounded up and killed by USDA Wildlife Services across Denver. These cullings were unnecessarily cruel, ineffective for population management, and a complete waste of taxpayer dollars. I, Robert Honish, oppose any killing of Canada geese before fully implementing non-lethal, humane methods of population control and without direct, meaningful, substantive public notification and engagement. Please understand the cruelty and unnecessary violence that is being committed against those who cannot speak up for themselves, and stop the continuous cullings of Canada geese within our city. Thank you, Robert Honish, and I also thank you.
Thank you for your comment. We appreciate you coming and speaking. We do have another speaker, Jacqueline. Jacqueline?
Yes, I'm here.
Or, yep, 3 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. Okay. I'm Jacqueline St. Joan from the north side. I'm in District 1, although I spent most of my 49 years in Denver in District 8 in Northeast Denver. I am a retired lawyer, Denver County judge, and a DU law professor, retired. Most of my legal career was dedicated to ending violence against women. Most recently, I headed the legal team for the renamed Stapleton movement. In July, I went to Garland Park at 5 a.m. one morning to watch the men round up the geese from the water, herd them into plastic pens, grabbed the geese one by their wings and by their necks as they separated them from their families, forced them into cages, and drove them away to be gassed or to have their necks broken. Now, I have 4 grandchildren whom I have been teaching for years about Canada geese. And what the kids like the most is learning the goose language, because you know they are that intelligent. The way they announce their presence with honking, honk, honk, we all know that one. Or there's also the distressed cry of separated, widowed geese. Oh, ooh, oh, ooh. And especially the soft coos of contentment of the goslings being found after they were lost. Ew, ew. Now, I believe in teaching children the facts of life when they ask. I remember when I told my 10-year-old grandson about the Holocaust and the dropping of the atom bomb, and he cried out, "Why would anybody do that?" And I was helpless to explain it. Now, of course, those were crimes of an entirely different dimension, but his question and the tone of it were the same when I told him about the culling of the geese. Why would anybody do that? And when I tried to explain, he was incredulous because people won't tolerate the goose poop and it costs too much to clean it up. Now, people can learn to be tolerant. When I'm driving, cyclists sometimes annoy me, but I've learned to tolerate them, to slow down and pay closer attention. I'm a walker. I take walks every day, and sometimes cyclists are a nuisance, but I've learned to shout thank you to the ones who give a warning and step aside for the others. Some dog owners let their pets trample my garden and pee on my lawn, but I've put up a little boundary fence that makes a difference. And I don't want raccoons or foxes in my yard, but I don't wait with a pistol to shoot them either. I just stopped leaving cat food and water on the back deck. Humans can adjust to the inconveniences that geese present when they are here in great numbers for part of the year. We can appreciate, or at the very least tolerate them while in the same city. And we can clean up the goose poop and with specialized sweepers or volunteers, and we can find the money to do it through the expansive sales tax fund or park foundations. Surely this is a problem that can be solved without violence.
Okay, I'm sorry the 3 minutes had expired, but we do appreciate your comment. Thank you very much for your engagement, and we appreciate that. We're going to move to the next speaker, I believe is Courtney DeWinter.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. The 2020 capture and killing of geese from Denver's parks unfortunately has been completed, and Denver Parks Management has insisted that the meat of Denver's dead urban geese should be put to good use feeding the needy. This is just a PR move designed to help people feel good about slaughtering geese for their own convenience. Last year, the meat was not inspected before it was distributed to the poor. This year, the meat is supposedly being tested for safety. But I'm asking you to ask the questions of Denver Parks. Who's testing this meat, and do they have a vested interest in a negative answer? And are they testing for all the chemicals on Denver's parks? Feeding Denver's urban geese to the needy is a threat to public health. So let's look at what's really in that meat. A 2019 Denver pesticide report shows 29 pesticides, herbicides, and algaecides report on Denver park lands or in Denver park lakes with the following findings. All of these chemicals are either harmful to people, harmful to dogs, or harmful to pollinators. And geese living in Denver parks ingested and absorbed those chemicals. The harmful effects of those substances include birth defects, cancers, cell growth disruption, convulsions, decreased red blood cell count, DNA damage, enlargement of the heart, miscarriages, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, reduced sperm counts, respiratory arrest, and death. It is morally bankrupt, dangerous to distribute tainted meat to anyone, let alone people of color, our seniors, our veterans, and our kids. The only place that meat belongs is in a landfill. I will subsequently be emailing you all a copy of 2019 Denver pesticide report and a corresponding newly updated pesticide research document tomorrow. And as you look at that, I'm asking the entire PRAB board to take a good long look at all those chemicals, all the harmful effects, and make a decision to put a stop to this. It is imperative that you do everything you can to put a stop to this before this meat is distributed. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. We appreciate it and appreciate your engagement. Thank you very much.
Marla, we have Katie McKenna up next, but I don't see her on the list of attendees. Nor do I see Merriman Crawford, who is the next person after Katie. But Kelly Leviker is here and is unmuted now.
Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. Thank you very much for hosting the public comment session. My name is Kelly Leviker and I live in Colorado and I am a member of Canada Geese Protection Colorado. I will be reading a letter by the Honorable Dr. Jane Goodall, which she sent prior to this year's calling. Dear Mr. Scott Gilmore, I am aware that geese once again are being called in Denver. I know that approximately 1,600 were killed last year. And this year, it's possible that as many as 4,000 geese may be removed. I urge you to stop using lethal methods that most likely will have to be used yearly and adopt non-lethal measures to manage the geese. In some of the other locations, eggs have been oiled so they do not hatch. Goose droppings have been mowed up, grasses that do not attract geese have been planted to replace vegetation that geese actually prefer, and model predators and other deterrents have been used successfully. All of these are less costly than lethal methods. Thank you for considering my request. Sincerely, Jane Goodall, PhD, DBE, Dame Commander of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, founder of the Jane Goodall Institute, and United Nations Messenger of Peace. I would like to add one small sentiment of my own. If there was is a will, there was is a way. There is nothing about this so-called solution that was inevitable. By now, we should be able to get a firm commitment from Scott Gilmore that this will not continue. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your comment. We appreciate your taking time to give us those. We're going to move on to the next speaker. Is Mary Frances Nevins.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Executive Director, and honorable members of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. My name is Mary Frances Nevins. I'm an attorney and I reside in District 9, 1 block from City Park. I have submitted comments regarding goose management and won't read them in their entirety. I appreciated the Sustainability Committee and Mr. Gilmore discussing plans to work together with the First Gentleman and volunteers regarding goose management. While I look forward to doing what I can to assist this effort, I want to note for the PRAB meeting minutes that in 2019-2020, I respectfully disagree that Denver met the requirements of its policy entitled Public Engagement, Communication, and Notification regarding goose management. The policy requires public outreach, even for Tier 3 issues. These are emergency issues, so it is questionable whether goose culling should fall into this category. First, in the summer of 2019, then again last month, no affirmative actions listed in the policy were taken by Denver to alert interested citizens. the Resident Canada Goose Damage Management Plan 2020 was posted and discussed for the first time at the May 2020 PRAB meeting when culling was imminent. Additionally, as I have mentioned in previous meetings, the website lacks financial analysis upon which DPR is making its culling decisions. Mr. Gilmore mentioned in December 2019 that he feared for the safety of his staff if culling times and locations were published. I believe in his heart, concern for his staff allows him to justify not adhering to the requirements of the policy. However, the DPR policy requires specific means of communication, and in my observation, these public outreach requirements were not taken. Please see my comments that I asked to be incorporated into the minutes, and I thank you for your leadership and service.
Thank you, Mary Frances. We did receive that document, and we appreciate you sending that, and we can make sure that's included. We do have Meredith taking minutes for us as our secretary is out, so we'll make sure that that does occur. Thank you. Our next speaker, Katie Fisher.
Hi, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me.
We can hear you.
From INCC Park, as you know, is the subcommittee that I serve on. We want you to be aware of this WebEx format does not work for most of us. Some of our computers aren't compatible, and it is very awkward. I'm very impressed that so many of the Save Canadian Geese have been able to use it, but the average citizen, I think, is still having trouble with this being a public meeting. And I wonder if you could explore in going into another sort of format that would make it more readily available. And once again, thank you all for serving on this. I know you're all volunteers, and we do appreciate your work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that comment. We will take it under advisement. Okay. We have the next speaker is Pfeiffer Brown.
Hi there. Can you all hear me?
We can hear you.
Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for giving us this time to speak. I am Pfeiffer B, and I am from Colorado. I'm calling from St. Louis, Missouri. I have a letter that I'd like to read on behalf of Canada Geese Protection Colorado. It will also begin with the same Dear Mr. Scott Gilmore as the others have. This is a letter from Jill Robinson, the founder and CEO of Animals Asia Foundation. Here we go. Dear Mr. Scott Gilmore, the decision to kill resident Canada geese by Denver Parks and Recreation and its contractor, the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Wildlife Services Division, flies in the face of the law and the advice of experts and ignores appeals from those local community who are calling for the humane treatment of this species. Numerous humane alternatives to control the population have been offered, but still the killing is set to go ahead, leaving those of us across the globe astonished with such a decision at a time when such ignorance and disregard towards animals is showing such disastrous effects to them and to humankind. If we want to survive, we need to create a healthier world that respects the environment and all of these species we share it with. Cruelty has led us here, and the only cure is kindness. Jill Robinson, founder and CEO of Animals Asia Foundation. I want to thank you guys and also acknowledge that this is a volunteer board, and I appreciate you all so very much. As a Denver resident and as just a person, I ask that each of you take a stance on how you feel about what happened with the geese, if you feel that it should be something that we come up with an alternative, a humane alternative. I ask that each and every one of you please take a stance. Either you're okay with it or you're not okay with it, but I want each of you to be vocal about how you feel about what happened, because as you've heard, we all feel very strongly, and we would like to know where your hearts are and where your minds are and where your thoughts are. We appreciate you letting us speak to you guys as frequently as you do. And so I look forward to hearing what you all have to say, working together. Again, thank you guys for donating your time for this kind of stuff. Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you. Thanks for your comments. Our next speaker, Lisa Levinson. Lisa, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me all right?
We can hear you.
Wonderful. So Lisa Levinson is my name, and I am here from In Defense of Animals, which is an international animal protection organization. And we do have a significant membership in Colorado. So we sent a letter to be distributed to the Denver Mayor, Tourism Bureau, and to the Colorado Tourism Office. And this was our letter. I thought I'd share it with you today. And we had 6,500 people sign it and send it. So these people are concerned about animal welfare, and the letter reads, I am disgusted by Denver Parks and Recreation's decision to round up and kill hundreds of geese every year. Lethal goose management is not effective and wastes taxpayer dollars. If it worked, senseless and cruel roundups would not continue on the same properties for decades. Despite ongoing efforts to educate Denver's leaders about humane goose management methods, Parks and Recreation opted for brutal killing in 2019 and 2020. I urge you to cancel Denver's killing contract with the USDA and employ humane long-term solutions for 2021 and beyond. The key is to start planning now. I pledge not to visit Denver or spend any money on Denver-based products until the city implements a humane goose management plan. So in Defense of Animals, we started a National Goose Protection Coalition, and we have a wealth of resources to help your city transition from a lethal to a humane goose management plan. So you can contact us at geese@idausa.org. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And I imagine we have that information in a written document that you might be able to send.
I can send the letter, and also I can provide some information for you. Sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker is Debbie Main. Debbie, are you there?
Debbie is on the list and she's unmuted. Debbie?
Thank you. Give her a minute. While we see if Debbie is here, I wonder if the previous speakers who have signed up but were not on the line.
Checking for Katie McKenna, Merriman Crawford, no. Walter Heidenfelter, nope. No.
Okay, Debbie, we're gonna give another chance here.
Okay, and I think she was the last person to sign up before the cutoff.
Okay. Then at this time, I will close public comment. Thank you to all of you who took the time and made an effort to really share your thoughts with us. We do appreciate that. We do hear you. And what we did, for those of you who are joining us, is we did start public comment instead of moving to consent agenda items because we did not have a quorum. So we're going to go back up to the top.
Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
I received a note from Miriam Crawford indicating he or she, I'm not sure if it's a he or she, sorry, was very ill and could not make it today,
Okay, thank you
for the record.
Okay, so we're going to now move to the consent agenda items, and the only one we really have is to approve the July 2020 minutes. I believe you all had those sent and should have had an opportunity to look at them, but I'll give you a couple minutes here to review, and we'll hear any corrections or changes. Just note that Meredith is kindly taking notes for us and taking minutes for us today. Okay. I'll hear a motion to approve the July minutes.
So moved.
Calling for a second.
Second.
I'm sorry, who seconded that?
Frank.
Thank you, Frank. Okay, so we'll vote. What I'd ask you to do is find your hand under the participants and please raise your hand. All those in favor. I'm happy to see real hands too. That's fine. Okay. Leslie.
I got a note that Leslie is abstaining. I also want to let you know that Jack Patterson and Pam Joyner are on the line and they are unmuted.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, so any nays, please raise your hand at this time. I see none. And we have 2 abstentions, Leslie Targoski and Tosh Mitchell. Welcome, Tosh. Good to see you. Okay. Very good. So moving into the next agenda item, I want to note that it's our intention, I know it always is, just to state it, is to really end this meeting on time at 7:30 and still accomplish the important work that we're doing. And so we do have really only the committee reports, very important committee reports, and the executive director's report. And then we will have a little time at the end for board announcements. I, at this time, would like to just ask this group if that agenda is acceptable, if there's anything that really is pressing that needs to be considered at this time, either for this meeting or to make sure we have a time to speak about it. So I just want to always leave that option open because these are fluid times. So I would just like to hear that if there's any pressing matters.
I don't know about pressing matters, but I can bring up in my outreach update a couple of items that are not on the agenda. One of those is requesting that we actually get a detailed agenda. I would like the committee to be able to discuss that, as well as the committee to be able to discuss having public comment in each of the committees or some kind of public engagement so that we are uniform across our committees for that. And then to also be able to discuss what's next for our equity work, including an update about our statements, so the public is aware about what our process has been around these issues that have come up previously.
Thank you for bringing those things up. I do hear the request for a detailed agenda, and I think that one of the things we want to put in place is having the committee chairs help build that agenda and create a detailed agenda. So acknowledging that that did not happen this month and that that is our intention moving forward.
And just, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, but just one more item is the naming, and just wanting to make sure that we don't miss that opportunity for that discussion, and that I'm just not quite sure when that's going to be coming up. So the renaming, the dedications of parks and all of that. So we've been talking about having that conversation.
Okay, thank you for adding that. I can give an update on a couple of things, and I'll look to the ad hoc task force to help us understand where we are in the process with the draft statement. And Lee being, I think she was chairing that task force, and she's not here, so I'd ask another member to step up and kind of give us a report on that. And I'd like to do that in board announcements, if that's acceptable to this group. Okay, I'm seeing nods. And then the equity work, the good news is, we're really all set. We had dates, but the dates did get filled by the facilitator, of course. We can understand her services are in high demand about now. And scheduling is always the most challenging part of any work, it seems. So we are still in the scheduling process, and you will see additional communication about that. I do commit to getting that on the books, no later than next week, come whatever it takes. So it is a bit of a, it's a delay, unfortunately. So I can give that update. And then if there's no other comment at this time, we can move right into the committee reports. I'll pause to hear. Okay, so we do have committee reports at this time, and I'd call on a volunteer committee chair to lead us off, please. Don't all speak at once.
I'll volunteer. This is Fran.
Thank you, Fran.
Okay. I went ahead and sent a written report of what I'm going to report, so I'll try to be succinct.
Thank you.
We met, the Sustainability and Resiliency Subcommittee met on the 31st of July. Over 16 attendees listened in, which I invited probably 25 people in that category. Had a very welcome meeting with First Gentleman Marlon Reese, who is a goose protection advocate. And I felt it was very productive. It was finally a meeting where we had kind of a win-win feeling about it, where I was able to invite him to the SNR subcommittee. I'm going to call it the SNR just to stop because it's a long title. And so he came to the meeting, and so did Deputy Director Scott Gilmore, who heads the Parks Department. And it was very fruitful, and they agreed to form a partnership, which is still in the making, and basically discuss all kinds of different ways that would become non-lethal to deal with the overpopulation of geese in Denver, Colorado. I should say Denver, Colorado parks. So I'm feeling very, very hopeful about it. There has been correspondence between First Gentleman Reese and also Deputy Director, Executive Director Scott Gilmore. And some of those suggestions were coyotes, which I guess the geese do respond to. Also, what can non-lethal egg oiling look like in the spring, and other possibilities. So it's feeling very, very hopeful, despite a lot of the public comment that you heard. I have received tons of emails from a lot of the advocates, and I have responded to everyone. It's difficult to be on a subcommittee when really I'm not setting the policy. So I always make sure that the department, Scott Gilmore and Vicky Vargas, are included in my replies so that it's part of the record. We also invited Doug Woods, who is the director of parks, and for it's great. He brought on Adam Smith and also Damian Wetzel, who spoke about pesticides and also the water availability at parks. And one of the things that we really wanted to see is, can we use drinking fountains in the bathrooms? And unfortunately, because of COVID, that cannot happen, because with all of the cuts, there is just no way that for every employee has to be there, Denver Parks employee has to be there to clean up, and we just don't have the bandwidth to do that, especially with economic cuts. So we did settle on maybe signs being printed up that indicate those kinds of things to parents or users of the park, is bring your own bottle of water and those kinds of things, and sanitation items, so that, and clean up after yourself, because right now even disposing of the trash is very difficult, because we really have had a reduction in staff. Also, I do want to add that Scott Gilmore provided a updated report on the geese management, has basically told the first gentleman that they do not foresee any culling in 2021. The first gentleman wanted an even more firmer commitment that that would not happen in future years. Scott said that he wasn't going to make a statement that he could not totally back up, that he would have to go with the science and also the ecological measurements of the population of geese. So no matter what I want everyone to understand is that we at least have a dialogue going from both sides. So I'm feeling very encouraged that way. That is pretty much it. We will continue to work on our list, and our list is looking at the green infrastructure, a further understanding of the use of pesticides, that tree canopy, also endangered things like the monarch butterflies, and energy, air pollution, and the greenhouse gas reduction. So those are all topics that we will be tackling, not all at once. It will probably be one topic per meeting, because I keep the meeting down to an hour. And I think that's pretty much it, unless people have questions.
Yeah, I have a couple of
Thank you for the report, Fran. We will open it up for questions, and I understand you have a question.
Yeah, can you hear me, Marla?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay, great, thanks. So I'm definitely glad to hear that progress is being made in terms of the issue with the geese. Also, like many of you, being a community person, who's done a lot of the homework, often community people don't get a lot of the credit. So we have a lot of community people who have also done a lot of the work, and I want to make sure that they also get acknowledged. I know that the first gentleman got involved in part because of the work of Canada Geese Protection Colorado, wanting to have an advocate when they did not feel heard by our board and by our city. So I'm glad to see that that happened. I think when we talk about dialogue, dialogue requires a conversation and not just a presentation. And dialogue also requires talking across with people rather than presenting out. And so I know that that's one of the things that we continue to hear through our outreach committee and through our District 9 Advisory Committee, is that people still want a dialogue around the Geese issue rather than a presentation. The science is in dispute. Both sides say that they are using science, that they are using best practices. And I'm not in a position to judge that either way, but I do know a good process when I see one, and I don't think we've had one. So I know that there was talk before, and I think it was actually Fran's suggestion about looking at moving the Geese issue out of the Sustainability Committee. And I'm not quite sure what the other vehicle would be. Maybe it's an ad hoc study committee, but we have to get to a place where we get some resolution around this issue. So, you know, I wanted to be able to put that out there, that we need to be able to, you know, just kind of get at a point where it doesn't feel like it's so conflictual. So I would recommend, and I'm not necessarily making a formal motion at this point. Maybe do that toward the end, but that we have maybe a working committee. And then just the last thing I want to say on it is that this board has also said that they want to weigh in. It shouldn't just be the Sustainability Committee and Parks and Rec staff that have a voice in this, but I've heard, and I know I believe for myself, that I would like an opportunity to weigh in and have a board discussion about it. And I get that this board has done that before, but we've got a lot of new members too.
Okay, thank you for all of that.
Marla, could I add, related to Lisa's comment?
May I ask who's speaking? I'm sorry.
I'm wondering, so
breaking up.
as board, as on this board, I'm just wondering what is the action that we could take in regards to the goose calling or other issues? Would it be to pass a resolution or make a recommendation? That's just a question that I've had, especially as we've been getting all of these comments about goose calling and then the steered trees as well.
Could I comment on this, please?
Sure, Fran.
Okay, I believe that might have been Molly. Could you say that was you?
Yeah.
That just spoke. Okay.
Thank you.
I believe that a committee has been established as a result of the agreement between Scott Gilmore and Marlon Reese. And the intention is to invite all sides, all advocates on both sides, to join that partnership as they move forward. So in many ways, it's going to grow. It's going to grow past the Sustainability and Resilience Subcommittee. Of course, we will continue to monitor it. One of the things that occurs is we have the meeting, and we also have the opportunity on WebEx to invite attendees. And my intention is to keep people aware of how things are transpiring, and then allowing folks to use the public comment that happens at PRAB. Our meeting is, our intention as a subcommittee is to learn as much as we can on the topics because they're very complex. Pesticides are complex, wildlife management is complex, sustainability of the monarch butterfly, and so on. So that's what we're trying to do. For every email I get, I always make sure that PRAB members see it. I always make sure that PRAB members are invited to the SNR meeting. And it's a standing meeting. It's the last Friday of every month.
at 1 o'clock, and you're more than welcome. And should you sign on, you will be a panelist. So that's my invitation.
And I don't think that answers my question. So I'm trying to figure out what is the best vehicle. You know, as Councilwoman Sedabaca says, who of course I'm representing, community engagement isn't community decision making. And so we need to be able to have a vehicle where people feel like they have a part in community decision making. So I think what we may need to do is wait for maybe when we give our report as the outreach committee to make a motion around community engagement, because I'm not quite sure that everybody is with my version or Fran's version of our perspectives of how communities should be engaged. And I also, the other piece of that is the best time to have meetings, 9 o'clock in the morning on a weekday. People who still have jobs that didn't get lost in the economic crisis, that's a terrible time for them. So I think as a committee, we need to kind of figure out who are we serving, and is it the best times for people to engage?
Okay, thank you for that comment. I do think that one of the things that we want to work towards as we work on our equity work it is this very topic, is how can we be more inclusive as a going to look in structure. So I appreciate the conversation. I do think that in terms of our role, since we aren't really decision makers, that engagement is a good goal. We, as a volunteer board, really are advisors, and I do think that each of us has a duty or a opportunity, whichever you choose to say, to really have dialogue with community members, and really start to talk to and with and about what's happening in each of our communities, and bring that forth. I think that is one of the fundamental roles, as I understand it, of our jobs, volunteer jobs, I should say, on this committee. And so I do think that's where dialogue, it's a really good point that you make about dialogue. So I know we could talk quite a bit about this. What I'd love to do is maybe put that in the outreach. I know you have lots to say about it. So is that acceptable? Does that work?
Yeah. Hi, everybody.
Scott has a comment.
If you guys want me to just give you a real quick update on what's going on, I did, just so you know, I take pride in engaging with the community and making sure that I listen and try to, get their input. I understand this is a very challenging and difficult issue that we are dealing with. And I've tried to talk to every single person that has called me, emailed me, or reached out to me. I have gone above and beyond trying to make sure our stuff is online. I get that there's some individuals that just still do not feel that we have engaged with them and have listened to them. And I understand that. I do want to let you know that, we did have a meeting with the first gentleman. I have committed to coming up with a plan, which I actually had a meeting with staff today about efforts to allow the community to get more engaged in the management of geese in the city and county of Denver. So we have come up with numerous opportunities for the community to either help on restoration efforts, restoration or conversion efforts along lake edges, or working with deterrents to put in their local parks to try to make sure that the geese population doesn't grow. This issue is so challenging. Even though I was listening to all the people giving comments, even their information is incorrect, because they're saying non-lethal methods, and I had to correct the first gentleman numerous times, because egg oiling, which is something that we will have to continue to do every year if we want to keep the populations down, is a lethal method of control. Everybody says non-lethal, non-lethal, non-lethal. That would include egg oil, and we would not be able to use egg oil. And so that is just the complexities of this issue, because people hear something and they get on that bandwagon, and then it's kind of like, okay, we're going for non-lethal in Denver. Well, one of our main ways of keeping the population down is a lethal control method. And everything we have done is actually highlighted in the state management plan. So that is something else that I've always tried to highlight to people, is that everything that we have implemented in our city is sanctioned by our state wildlife agency, who is charged with managing wildlife in the state of Colorado. So I just did want to make those comments, but I think we will be providing the governor and the Geese Protection Group with this document about how we can get engaged and start working together more closely to make sure that we do not have to cull in the future in the city and county of Denver. That is a goal for me, because I hope everybody understands that I do not want all these phone calls and all these emails again next year. So, okay. So that is my goal too. And I'm trying to commit to that, but I'm also not going to make a promise that as a city, I might not be here in 3 years. So I don't want to make a promise that I cannot keep if I'm not here. So that would be dishonest, and that would be dishonest to the public that I was speaking to. So I did want to bring that up.
Thank you, Scott. We do appreciate all the work and effort that you've made around this. I was particularly noted the email you sent around your background and your why you care about geese, and so I appreciated that. And thank you for coming in and sharing that. We do have several people who want to speak, and apologies in advance. I sometimes don't see that, but people are helping me, and I appreciate that. So in this order, Tosh, Florence, and Amy. So Tosh, please speak. Please, you have the floor.
Great. Good evening, team. I hear all the comments about geese, and I see all the emails in my inbox. And what I think about this issue is that there's really, this challenge shines a light on the need for a process for both public participation and our internal process. I'm not sure that Molly's answer received an answer. I have the same question that Molly has. You know, what are the ways in which we can really, as advisory board members, represent the constituency that we're sitting at the table to represent? It has not been made clear to me how I can really impact or advocate or make a difference for those folks that I sit at the table representing. So just want to go on the record for saying that, and I don't believe that we can wait until we get a date. I'm not okay with delaying these conversations about public participation and internal process, which is really a big part of our need to have a conversation around justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Did I say Florence was next? Please help me. I said Amy. Florence, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm just a little confused on this button here. And I think this has always been an ongoing question for the board, as far as what does it really entail as far as getting the public input and making sure that we are truly acting as the eyes and the ears for our communities that we represent. And I think that is something we've focused on, spend a tremendous amount of time, and I'm going to refer back to the game plan, because that's something we've really tried to include. And I think if we need to continue the conversation to say, are we doing it? Are we implementing some of the things that we've spent some time on trying to decide and discuss and figure out Are we meeting those needs? So again, and Marla, I agree with you to schedule some time to have this conversation that includes what we've come up with in the game plan, which also addresses the comment that Scott made that says when he's no longer here, when none of us are here, that game plan continues on. So I think that's another a key point, is that it will live on after, all of us, or whenever we're replaced or move on or whatever. That still is a key piece, a key document. And I think if we go back and look at that, maybe that will help us in determining what that conversation looks like and how do we do that. And if we don't have those answers, it's like, let's, Lisa, as you mentioned, figure out what that process is. Because it's been an ongoing situation and we all do it differently. So thanks, Marla, appreciate that. And hopefully we can keep moving on to the other committee reports as well.
Thank you. We do have one more comment here. Amy? You have a comment?
I actually don't. I think
okay.
I might have just raised my hand by accident. Sorry about that.
Okay, no worries. I'm glad we checked with you instead of passing that over. So I do appreciate all the discussion here. Very important. And I'd like to, I like that comment around game plan. I think that this is worthy of a little bit of thought and maybe a proposal that we can all consider. I'm not sure if that's coming from the outreach committee, ad hoc committee that we could generate for this. Do you, Lisa or Tosh, have a recommendation on where it should live, not necessarily on what we're doing, because understanding that's a lot to ask in this moment.
Is our equity meeting with the, it's not scheduled yet, right, with Dr. Tyler?
We're still working on it, apologies, yes.
Okay, because I feel like all of these are connected to an equity conversation, right? So maybe, so I heard what you said, Marla, in terms of we're gonna expedite getting that scheduled. So I would say that that's probably the place, because all of these issues intersect, right? And so when I was talking about decision-making, I wasn't talking about hard decision-making like a legislator. What I'm talking about is we need to gather input to inform policy for those decision makers, right? So there's a pipeline of information. And so I think that's also part of the equity conversation. We make decisions about how to run the PRAB board. We make decisions of who gets to speak and who doesn't get to speak. Those are all decisions. And so I think that probably best sits in our equity conversation. I'm fine with waiting for that, so long as we're not waiting too long. So that's it.
Thank you. Okay. And it will stay in outreach. That's what I'm hearing. Sorry, I'm taking my own notes just so I'm not forgetting.
This is Fran. Lynn has a message for Arthur. If he can work on it, then appreciate it. It's in chat. It's in chat. She lost connection.
We need to move to our next committee report. Is that acceptable to the group? I'm seeing head shaking. Okay.
Thank you, Fran. I'll try and help her.
Let's move to the next committee report, please.
Okay, this is Meredith. I will report for the Planning and Design Committee. Before I report, I just wanted to give one comment from the last discussion regarding outreach. I think there is a lot of discussion that can be made about how to reach out to the community. I wanted to make a suggestion for each monthly meeting, if we could have on the agenda some of the time-sensitive outreach items to remind people about some of the community meetings and things that are already formalized that we just need to share the information about. So just wanted to mention that. So the planning and design team, we met on July 22nd, and the focus was on two things. One was to connect with the mountain park staff, because our team has absorbed mountain parks as part of our repertoire. So we met with Brad Eckhart from Denver Mountain Parks, and essentially, the summary is that things are pretty slow right now. There are no special events happening, no special programs. The ropes course is on hold, and their team has some serious concerns about budget cuts and lack of revenue, especially with Red Rocks being a normal big income for the mountain parks, and how that lack of revenue will impact their maintenance projects and programs in the future. And the conversation was just about how PRAB can be a resource to mountain parks and some of the ongoing issues that have come up that are kind of big things to tackle, like transportation and parking. So just learned a little bit about each other and how we can support each other, and that was the main focus. And then additionally connected with Kathleen Levesque about capital improvement projects and how things are going. And she has reported that they will be updating the budget, and that several projects originally included in the 2020 budget will be deferred for a year or two because of changes in the 2020 revenue projections, and they need to adjust expenditures and so forth. They don't have a final list, but they will be working on that. And then finally, just an update about the inclusive play strategy. And here will be a really good opportunity to do outreach in our community, but they are currently finalizing the list of stakeholders, and will plan to schedule a virtual kickoff stakeholder meeting in the next month or so. So in addition to that, there will be community listening sessions, and so I will send some more information about how to get involved if you have folks in your community that you believe to be part of the inclusive play strategy, and perhaps I'll be able to get a list of folks that are already kind of on board. So we'll try to keep you updated on those two things. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Thank you, Meredith. I'm not seeing questions, but I'm giving it a minute so that people can digest the good information. Okay. Thank you for your report. And thank you for your work. Can we call on our next committee report, please? Does Outreach Committee want to?
Sure. Hi, it's Tosh.
Tosh, thank you.
Thank you, Marla. I was out, as you all know, Lisa Calderon and I are co-leading the Outreach Committee / Action Team. I spent July on vacation, and our agreement was to revisit our committee times, community input and equity statement that has been addressed and noted by this board. The other piece, though, is we had a great meeting with District 9 folks, and it was super informative. We had great discussion / healthy debate about geese and how we manage wildlife in Denver parks. And there was a bunch more really good information. We're looking at the regular time for that. I don't know that we have one. I actually think we made for that part of our work, but we'll keep folks updated on our new committee meeting time.
Yeah, and I can just add on to that as co-chairs, and it's been a delight to be a co-chair with Tosh, and also the other the folks who have been joining us for those meetings. And I just had my notes up and they just disappeared.
May I ask a question while you're looking at those? Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if folks, in addition to District 9 folks, are invited or encouraged to attend any of those meetings, or how is that structured?
So we have some folks from the PRAB board who have participated, and that has been really helpful. I think that's where we really do get that dialogue. You know, we might want to consider, and we do have regular times for that. We meet once a month in the evening. I can't remember the exact date. I think it's, you know, so it's Wednesday, like at 5 o'clock or something like that. But and it's made up of folks from all across the city. The only hesitation I have by making it an official time is that we also don't want it to feel overly managed by, you know, city staff. Not that, you know Arthur and Jesus are great, but we want people to be able to say what they want to say without feeling like they have to censor themselves. So we've been getting a lot of good input, but I think we can maybe work something like that out. So there's that. Did that answer your question, Marla?
I guess I'll wait to hear more about that. Sure.
Okay. So I would just say I'll take it back to our D9 Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, see if they're willing to maybe transition that into an outreach meeting instead, and what they would need to feel okay with sharing their perspectives if we, you know, had staff and other PRAB board. But so far it's been working really well.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so I guess a couple of other updates from that meeting. We have some folks who are supporting Councilwoman Cedabaca's charter initiative for, and that's SOS Denver. If people want more information about that, feel free to reach out to me and I can give you more information about that. But she will be filing that this week and looking to have public comment on that before City Council, probably the 31st of August. If that changes, I'll let you know, but we're looking to file that on Thursday, so folks can weigh in about that issue. We also had quite a robust discussion about wanting to see more perennial and propagator gardens and having community involved in planting and maintaining those. And so I think it would merit a good conversation with Scott around their vision for how that might look and how to get volunteers engaged with park maintenance. There's also, we had the Lily Ponds is still going on at City Park, and so they were also going to be inviting featuring artists, and artists of color specifically. And so we'll get out information about that once that is out there for folks in a public kind of way in terms of materials and publicizing that. We also had a pretty robust conversation around parkways maintenance. And I got a whole education about that. And they wanted to stress the importance that the parkways be continually protected. And that might be a conversation as well for, and again, I'm sure you all have been on the PRAB longer than we have, us newer folks, but I think it would merit an overview about our parkways. And so, for example, I'm hearing that the West Side really doesn't have a whole lot of parkway plantings and protections, and how can we support the West Side of Denver with that? So a lot of conversation around that. And so we've already talked about the geese, and that was also a topic of conversation. So as you can just kind of see that we have a lot of different variety of issues and perspectives that we've heard from people. And pro and con on the geese part of it. Some people support the culling as well. And so I think it was a model of how to have a respectful conversation when people feel passionate about issues.
That's good to hear. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for your report.
Yep, thanks.
Any comments, questions for the outreach committee? I give people time because muting and unmuting and thinking all takes time.
So this is Meredith. Thank you Yeah, thank you, Lisa and Tosh, for sharing all your community engagement. Just wanted to throw out a suggestion that in future meetings that we might have an opportunity to provide updates from all of the districts about community engagement, because I think it's valuable to learn about what's happening, and if there are common topics or challenges, perhaps we can partner together. But it's interesting to hear what's happening in the city and to give us inspiration about how to engage our community. So thank you.
One more thing that I did forget. Thank you, Meredith, for that comment too. Marla, are you president or chair? I keep forgetting.
I'm interim, one or the other.
Well, Madam Chair or Madam President, so just I guess the tail end of our report is also around the renamings, and I don't know if there's already a committee for that. So I just wanted to know where that went.
So my understanding from our last meeting, and please board help us remember this, but is that Executive Director Haynes did mention that there is the process currently in place for renaming, and that there is an opportunity for people to mail or in those. There's still an opportunity. You don't have to do it in person to collect those lists. And so the process, I thought, was supposed to just happen as it's written in the procedures. Is there something that I'm missing?
Yes. So PRAB, yeah. So PRAB also has, I guess PRAB recently updated its recommendation for the 3 years from 7 years for renaming after someone has been deceased. We have that in our district with a young woman, Isabella Thallis, who was shot and killed when accompanying her boyfriend walking her dog. And so Scott has been very helpful in getting, we're actually going to have a dedication. I have to look up the date. I think it's next Friday, or it's this Friday, actually. I'll double check that and yeah, I think it's next Friday. With the family, yes, it's next Friday on the 21st. The family would like the no-name park to be renamed Bella Gardens, but we know that there's a 3-year wait period for that. So that's one example. Another is around the process of naming parks at La Raza Park, and I get that that's another process. But there were questions about our process of PRAB, and to have that conversation as a PRAB board about relooking at that policy.
Okay. I'll call on Executive Director Haynes. Do you have a comment here? I believe you have your hand up. Again, a minute.
I actually took it down. I was going to speak to that in my Executive Director's report.
Okay.
I can do it now if you on that topic if you'd like.
Please, I think that would be appropriate.
Okay, thank you. A couple of you mentioned a couple of different issues around naming. I wanted to start with the issues about renaming any of our facilities that bear the names of individuals with a questionable past and questionable affiliations historically, and just to remind the members of what that process is. We will be following the park's naming policy, but we have agreed, because there's a citywide committee that's looking at all of these facilities citywide, whether they're parks or otherwise. So all of our facilities will be also submitted to that committee for vetting and review before we proceed to follow our naming policy. And what that is, so for example, the La Raza Park proposal will be coming to you from our agency once it has been through that committee for the PRAB PRAB discussion and for the public hearing that is required under the naming policy. So that's the process on those particular things. And then I'll leave to you as it relates to the other issue. That's up to the PRAB about whether to revisit the other aspects of the naming policy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's what I'm requesting, and I know that we discussed that. I think in our executive committee, I think Leslie and I can't remember who else was on that call to discuss it, but we felt we needed to have a conversation among PRAB to relook at that policy. So,
yeah, and specifically the piece about how long is the wait period after someone is deceased, and are there exceptions? I think the best way to handle that is to bring it to one of our committees and have a recommendation, have them study it and bring a recommendation. It seems like that might be planning. Does that sound right, Meredith?
Marla, it's Leslie Torogowski. It could be planning, or it could be what is now the Finance and Policy Committee.
Policy. That's in your name now?
Well, you'll see in my update, yeah.
Then that would, you're right, be a good place for it, Leslie. Thank you. Yeah. So is it acceptable that this group will send that to the budget?
Yeah, that's fine with me. I just want to know where it's going to land.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Did we capture that in the notes, Meredith? Where it's going? Thank you.
What's the full name of this committee?
Finance and Policy.
Oh, great.
I think in January we named it Finance and Regulations, but maybe Arthur has a better recollection of that. I'm not sure.
During the committees, the committee name is actually the Operations and Maintenance, Budget and Finance Committee was how we named it at the retreat in January.
Oh, I stand corrected then. Oh, it should be noted, and like when I give my update, we're talking about updating parks policies, so perhaps that should be part of the naming, but I'll leave that discussion to myself and Trina and Frank, I suppose.